We've been talking all week about choosing a pathway. Today, we're going to talk about our discoveries of the week. I know Tom's got some, I've got some. What are your discoveries of the week about talking about choosing a pathway? All that and more is coming up next on today's Antidote.
Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom, good morning. And yes, folks, we are wearing the same clothes as Thursday if you're keeping track at home because we are recording this episode.
And for those of you on the podcast, you don't know the difference. So
I've got a lovely red shirt on. Tom's got a lovely blue and white striped shirt on that says Hamilton College on it. No, it just says Hamilton, which
just says Hamilton.
Could confuse someone because they could think that you're a big fan of the musical.
And I am.
I know.
So they can choose to think whatever they want to think.
And I'm fighting the urge to start singing songs from it, just so you know.
That might be an interesting episode, hearing Bob sing songs from Hamilton.
I could.
Not sure how many viewers we would have on that.
I think everyone would be helpless and want to burn. Oh, look at that. Some insider Hamilton humor. And they truly would not be satisfied. Oh, I'm on fire.
Yes, everyone, good morning and welcome to today's Antidote, our daily broadcast.
The people that know Hamilton, they're enjoying this. To the rest, it's a waste of time.
You sure about that?
Go ahead.
All right, everyone. Again, welcome to today's Antidote, our daily broadcast and podcast, where each day during the week we have a conversation around the topic. Typically, at the end of that conversation, we share our one thing, or today's antidote. Fridays are a little unique. On Fridays, we share our discoveries of the week. And as we're going through that conversation and sharing our discoveries, we hope that you will feel comfortable sharing your discoveries. Whether you happen to be in the comments, whether you happen to be following us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, or
LinkedIn Live, baby.
Yes, LinkedIn Live. Because we know that. Go ahead.
LinkedIn Live, baby. Come on, Tom. Say it right. LinkedIn Live, baby.
Got it. So we know that when you add your value, it'll help someone else out figure out how to take their next step. Maybe today, or maybe somewhere down the road, along their own unique pathway to success. And before we dive into our topic, as Bob said, is choosing a pathway, and we'll share our discoveries of the week, we always do our celebrations. Bob, what are you celebrating today?
I'm going to celebrate you, Tom, because you always give me things to think about. Even when I'm not in a mood to think about them, you still press on. And I mean that in the most positive way. You challenge me, you challenge my views, you challenge my thoughts, and you make me a better person for just having talked to you. And I know I've said before, but I get so much value from the time before and after the show. Because if you folks don't know, Tom and I routinely have what would you call it? A 15 to 30 minute therapy session for me each morning.
We have a conversation.
we have a conversation.
Not always a therapy session.
but more often than not. I've got a lot of moving parts outside of this broadcast. And Tom's been really good for the last, I dare say, almost 3 years, especially in the last year and a half, of really keeping me grounded and listening to me as I go through the highs and lows of a complicated life sometimes. So thank you for that.
Oh, my pleasure. Man, now I feel like I need to thank you for celebrating. I will celebrate, Bob. Because here's one of the things I think that I don't know that you always realize is that I often get as much out of those conversations as you do, even though a lot of it's talking about situations that you're dealing with.
I don't know how that's possible, Tom, because your situation and mine are so radically different.
I don't know. I mean, there's more similarities than you probably would imagine. And I think that that's because it's life. We all go through things in life, and I think that even though the situations may not be exactly the same, there are things you can take from each situation and consider, how does that impact what's real for me? And so I think,
good. I'm glad, because I always feel like you're going to send me a bill and it's going to be like a therapy bill for like thousands and thousands of dollars, and I'm going to be forced to pay it because you have provided me all that therapy over the years.
Well, the challenge is you're always in the bunker, and I don't know the address for the bunker, so I couldn't send it to you, even if I,
Thank God.
even though I've tried and it's come back. Just sending it to Bob Graham in the United States hasn't seemed to work very well.
Renegade ringleader didn't get.
It hasn't focused on that yet. So you're not there yet.
Okay.
All right, everyone. So hopefully you will share your celebrations, because we know that when you share your celebrations, it changes your mindset. And hopefully helps you thinking about how you can take your next steps, rather than frustrated and worried about which step to take or a past step that you took. And those things are just passing judgment on yourself. Doesn't help you move forward. So as we dive into our conversation now around choosing a pathway and the discoveries of the week, Bob, do you have some discoveries you'd like to share?
Yes, I do. And I've got one really important one, which is I think we overvalue the pathways we choose at the start. I think, and before we even choose them, I think we sit there and go, well, I think that every time I took a job, a full-time job, I was thinking that it was the rest of my career, that it was going to be, I'll just till I'm 65 and then leave. Every single job. I can remember having that thought. And that was 15 jobs ago. So that thought process probably wasn't helping me and make a decision, because I was adding more weight to it than it needed to. And when I was teaching college students, I would always tell them, they're like, yeah, I don't know which job to take. I'm like, look, just figure out, take one. If you don't like it, you can leave and find something else. The average is 7 jobs over your career. So you figure if that's the average, my 15, that means someone went to their job for 30 years. But most of the people I know that have been at the same employer for 30 years have had at least 3 or 4 different roles. It's pretty rare that you stay in the same role for 30 years. Now, if you're a CPA or a lawyer, you might do the same thing year after year after year. But you might become a director, you might become someone higher up in the food chain. But I think we give too much weight to those pathways that we choose, and that makes it harder to pick. If I were picking a career choice based on what I know today to deal with the next 2 to 5 years, that's a lot different than if I was picking a career choice that was going to last me 30 years. Especially if you're a college student, right? I mean, your college student's like, I just want to be able to pay my bills. I want to be able to go out on the weekends. I don't want to work a million hours. I want to get job skills. But if you think of that same job at 22, 23 years old, right out of college, and you're like, okay, I need to be at this job for 30 years. Is there going to be enough retirement funding? Are they going to be supportive of me if I have a sick child? Are they going to force me to move to different parts of the country, which means I can't buy a house? All those things come into it. And that tends to be where I go. I go big picture, not smaller picture.
Well, I wonder in that, I really like that. And I think we talked about that on Wednesday, I believe. And the thing I wonder is, do we also overvalue the obstacles that could be in our way of each pathway?
I think I do. I can't speak for everyone, but I certainly, you give me the smallest of molehills and I can make it into a mountain.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, and we talked a little bit about that yesterday, is that so often we look at, and because of our knowledge, experience, and perspective, we're only able to identify certain expected outcomes, benefits, or challenges that may lie in front. Then you bring in someone else and they have a unique perspective and they can share that. And I think that no matter what pathway we choose, there are always unanticipated obstacles and benefits, opportunities along the way. And I almost wonder as we go through that, and if we devalue, I don't know is the right word, but reduce the value that we think the pathway has, maybe it's easier for us to make a choice and then move forward, realizing that there are a lot of different pathways that could get you to where you wanted to go. At some point, you just have to choose one, making the best decision you can at the moment, and then figuring out where to go from there. So I think that, the reducing of that value, which really to me is about trying to determine what the results are going to be. Expected results or expected outcomes a lot of times makes it more and more difficult to choose. Because when we don't get there as fast as we wanted to, or we don't get there at all, or we go way beyond it, it just adds to our knowledge, experience, and perspective for the next time.
As you were talking, I was thinking about when I was really young, in my teens and 20s, I really thought that you had to have this crystal clear path for your future. I think I talked yesterday in the program about being in newspapers, and my goal was to be a reporter, then be an editor, and then be a bigger editor, and then go work at the New York Times and be one of those people that controls what's on the front page. That was really the vision back then. And I'm so far from that now, in great ways and in disappointing ways. As I say it, I really enjoyed that. That would have been really fun to do. But I think the situations change for us, and it's not all our own doing. Sometimes those situations change because industries change, because the economy changes, because our lifestyle changes, get married or have children, or a sick relative, all those things that get in the way of choosing a career pathway or choosing a pathway. And I think those outside factors play a big role that we don't always talk about. It's easy to pick something when it's just, this is what I'm going to do. I'm laser focused on getting to this goal. I want to be the executive editor of the New York Times. That was 1980, 87, 88. Marriage came along, family came along, all kinds of things came along that made that no longer the appealing goal. And that doesn't mean I chose the wrong pathway in college. It just means I chose a pathway and circumstances changed. And I think most of the people I talk to, circumstances change over and over and over in life.
Every day.
Right.
I think that's the thing, is that you and again, there's nothing wrong with having a pathway like that and aspiring to, that's what your desire. Mm-hmm. That's the destination you're trying to achieve. Okay, great. What's the pathway look like? The challenge is that we control so little of it all that to be beholden to that pathway can be really difficult. Mm-hmm. And I think in some ways, usually when you make those decisions, as you said, we overvalue the pathway. Mm-hmm. You're like, well, the only way I'm going to have a happy life is if I become the executive editor of the New York Times, because that's all we know at the time.
Right.
At the time you made that decision, that was what you believed to be the pathway that you wanted to go, and would allow you to do all the things that you wanted to do, whatever that looked like.
By the way, if there's anyone from the New York Times listening or watching this and you need an executive editor, I'm still willing to consider it. I'm just saying. You got to put that in there.
Brings a lot of other questions up, and that's okay.
It's on that dream list.
All right, that's fair. There's nothing wrong with that. And again, what I liked about it, you said you would consider it. It means that it is an option as a pathway that you could then consider and make a choice about what you wanted to do next. I like that. Here's what I want. My one thing, or my discovery, not my one thing, my discovery of the week was kind of exactly what you just said.
That I want to be the executive editor of the New York Times.
And because you shared it. So, I mean, here's the thing. I think that when we choose a pathway, we have the opportunity to share it. Mm-hmm. And when we share it, we have the opportunity to gain more knowledge, experience, and perspectives from others. So the chance that you would ever have the opportunity to be the executive editor of the New York Times, if you never shared it, that that destination with anyone, pretty small. Once you share it, who knows? Somebody may watch this and be like, hey, you know what? I don't know if he's the fit we're looking for. Maybe it's worth a discussion. Or, hey, I know somebody at the New York Times that might help you take the next step closer to that. And I think that that's, to me, one of the value of choosing is that you are you get to share then with others what your destination is, so that they can help you along the pathway. Again, if you never share that, no one else would ever know, like, what is it you want to do and how could they potentially help? And I think that so often we feel like we have to do it all on our own. And because we feel like we have to do it all by ourselves, it makes it harder and harder to choose. Like, okay, based on what I know, what do I do next? When we choose to share that pathway with others, we have the opportunity to gain from the value that they have. Hopefully they are willing to share that with us to change and impact us. Because I think that the pathways are hard enough as they are. Traveling it alone.
Sometimes they align, right? I mean, your pathway, my pathway aligned. We were both going our own way as we got to know each other better and better. It's like, we both believe some of the same things. We both want to help people in this way. So podcast, Facebook group, coaching support, all those things that we've done because we realized that we had an alignment, that if we had not had coffee and lunch and, donuts together 20, 30 times over 7 or 8 years, we would have never gotten there. And it was because we were being honest and sharing, hey, this is what matters to me, and not in a judgmental, how dare you, Tom, think of that. That's so wrong. It was like, okay, that's great. And I also don't think we were looking for it in the beginning.
Well, I think I don't know. I can't speak for you. I would say that I have always been looking to network with people that I feel like I could have a connection with. And
but not to the level that we have taken our business at this point. I don't think either of us, because you said, I remember after we'd been together 3 or 4 times, I was helping you with something. You're like, I feel like I should pay you. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way with us. And
yes.
And we never asked for money from each other, even though we've helped each other in very profound business ways.
Correct.
And probably personally,
and I think
for me personally.
And sometimes you align and sometimes you just intersect. Sometimes you stay at the intersection a longer time. I think
that's a good topic for a week of programs. Intersecting, I like that.
Because just like our pathways, we head down them and something may come in that interrupts it. Could interrupt it for a long time or could interrupt it for just a short amount of time. Or it could just be passing. There are people who pass through our lives. And I think that's, because I think aligning. I knew
what you were talking about.
What's that?
I only wish I knew what you were talking about.
We all have it. If you think back over your life of how many people have you intersected with, some, I'm going to see some of the people I intersected with in college for 4 years, went away, and now we had another intersection, except it's probably for 30 minutes. And so I think that those things, we can intersect, we can align and connect for different amounts of time. And I think there's, some weird thing about these pathways that when we choose a pathway, it typically allows we open up opportunities for intersections with others. Ooh, interesting. Ooh. I could have chose not to go to Hamilton this weekend. It was a choice.
Right.
And I could have done the meeting that I need to be at via Zoom. And now I have the opportunity to intersect with some people that I might not otherwise have. Right. And I think that's
which could create new pathways.
Correct.
Or reinforce the existing pathways.
Or just be an intersection.
This is what I'm doing. And someone goes, well, Tom, geez, if that's what you're doing, I've got this opportunity for you.
And it could also just be an intersection.
Right.
We say hi to one another, we chat for a couple of minutes, and then we move on to whatever else we have going on. I mean, I think that those are always opportunities that are in front of us, that if we never choose a pathway, we will have random intersections that could turn out to be something else. Yet if we don't know where we're going, the likelihood that our intersections will last longer are likely not as strong. They'll just come and go because we connected in something. Like there'll be someone I'll meet that I'll say hello to that I'd never met before. And so that intersection happens, and the pathway chosen is, okay, great. It was nice to meet you. And we move on because we shared something in common for a moment. We had a brief intersection. And then there's the possibility that you never know when you start sharing within that intersection of what your pathway is. You may discover that you have more things in common, and that there might be a reason that intersection may want to go longer than you might have expected. Wow. Interesting.
My head is spinning with all we got going on today.
Yes. Well, and we welcome your thoughts and ideas. If you have a discovery of the week and you happen to be listening to our podcast, sorry, we know you can't share it in the comments. You can, though, if you're a LinkedIn person, go to LinkedIn and go to the Renegade Success Network for Leaders and share it in that group there. Or you can go to our Ring of Renegades on Facebook group and share it there, because we know that it could be about something about choosing a pathway, and it could be about something completely different. Because when we share our value, there's an opportunity that those intersections might last longer than we may have expected.
Indeed.
So we look forward to seeing you inside one of those groups. If not, we'll see you Monday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern time for our next episode of Today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone.
Hey, embrace the renegading you as you head into the weekend. And choose a pathway. Something maybe unexpected. What the heck?
Yeah. And when you do that, go out and make it a great day. We'll see you soon. Thanks for listening to Today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.